Episode number 214 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. My guest today is Allison Ramsey. Allison is an infertility survivor and licensed psychotherapist. With degrees in environmental education and psychology, she helps women call in the wisdom of nature to go from spiraling to thriving while trying to conceive. Allison is a member of the American Society of Reproductive Medicine and specializes in working with women through their reproductive journey to reintegrate the joys they experienced before trying to conceive. Over the last decade, Allison has helped hundreds of women find the acceptance and peace of mind necessary to love life while experiencing reproductive hurdles. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. Welcome to the podcast, Allison.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. It's so great to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. And you reached out to me. I loved your story because you're doing something right now that really reflects something that you feel very passionate about, because it's something that you would have needed during your own journey. And I think that it sounds like your own journey inspired it. So I would love if you can share your story with the listeners.
Oh, yes, you're right. I don't think you'll find a lot of reproductive specialists that haven't had their own
Yes, that's a
journey
good
in
point.
some regard. I trying to conceive is a existential crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that we do not expect is going to strike us. In fact, it's we've been told our whole lives that will be the easiest thing
Right.
you will ever do.
Oh,
so
totally.
Don't be in the same room with a man ever, because you'll get pregnant.
If he looks at you.
That's right.
Yeah.
And goodness, so I spent all my 20s and 30s getting ready to be ready, going to school and trying to find myself and finding the right person and getting the right job. And you know where that story goes. And you get everything all ready to go and you think, oh my gosh, I think we're ready. What if it works? Then cycles and cycles and months and years later, it's not working. And I think what I saw within myself and that I see my clients experience is that it feels like an internal mortal wound, that there is something wrong with you, amidst all of this work to be okay, to be enough, especially as a woman in our culture, working our way to try to do it all, which is not actually something that's possible, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
That's certainly part of the expectation. And so I actually was not ever, I wouldn't call myself a nature kid at all. You would find me at the mall more likely. And it wasn't until I had a environmental psychology class in college that I started to learn about how our environments affect our minds and moods. And that includes things like paint colors and supposedly yellow and red are more likely to make you hungry. And if you check out what you see on the highways, lots of yellow and red for the fast food places.
Interesting.
And so we are really influenced by what goes into our eyeballs. In fact,
I love that. That's interesting.
There's something like, I think I read that it was something like 80% of our sensory input goes in through our eyes, which is why I'm really glad I can see you right now, because it helps to make sense in my brain that
the conversation.
We're having a conversation. There's a person in front of me, even though it's a computer screen. And so I really leaned into that, and I started to get outdoors. I found lots of fun people outdoors. I expanded into backpacking with people and really facing fears as I went into the wilderness and somehow got myself a job teaching environmental education on 21-day backpacking trips.
Oh,
I
wow.
just kind of
So
went all
this is
in.
during your going through the fertility journey. You're trying to get pregnant. Oh,
No,
this is before.
this is before.
Got
And
it.
so
Interesting.
I did not have much nature experience, but I had like kind of a first mini crisis, sort of like, oh, you're supposed to graduate from college and then you'll get a job and kind of this what we've been taught. And I finished school and kind of freaked out. I was like, what? You mean I just have to work now?
Yeah.
And so I did a little of my own exploration and ended up working as a backpacking instructor and for people in their teens. And what I saw through, especially leading women, well, young women, high school girls in the wilderness for 3 weeks, that I saw their self-confidence grow.
Oh,
I
that's
saw
amazing.
their stress go away. They show up kind of vibrating, coming from the highway from their
Yeah.
lives and giving them a chance to once they kick off that road dust and settle in to the discomfort of being in the wilderness, then really settling into who they are. And I was so just astounded by the transformations I got to witness
I love
and the
that.
confidence I saw and the presentation that I got to see the girls go back into their lives with, that I ended up going back to school. And
So
so
your first degree was what?
I have a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in environmental education.
Interesting.
And I got a little distracted. I've always loved psychology, but this environmental awareness just really struck me. I grew up in the middle of the country. I just wasn't, nature was more for boys. It just wasn't something that I was super exposed to. I know my mother has never camped, and I'm not sure how often my dad ever has, because their generation they already suffered as farmers, right? And they did well enough to say, oh, good, we never have to go outdoors again.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't taken from me, but it definitely wasn't shown to me or offered to me. And so I got really enamored by the experience of being outside and what it could do to my sense of self and my sense of just being held outside of any external expectations or what I should be. And there are no mirrors. You don't know
That's a good
what you look
point.
like. You're only reflected in how you reflect the nature around you. There's something really breathtaking about that.
Yeah.
So we went back to school for psychology and got licensed and was really focusing more in grief work at the time. Sometimes I say plain old grief versus reproductive grief, because I didn't know the depths of reproductive grief yet.
Yeah.
And was starting my private practice and just seeing wonderful people, helping them navigate these transitions. And was married to an outstanding man that I met in the wilderness. He was a backpacking instructor
that's
too.
Cool.
Yeah. And so we thought it was ready to start trying. And I was 32 at the time, so definitely not old yet. And I was definitely not aware of the 35-year-old advanced maternal age
that
stuff.
just makes me so I never get over that. It's just so ridiculous to me, because I feel like 35 is young, actually, from my vantage point.
Oh, I love that so much. And it's almost like somebody delivers this death sentence to you.
It's such a label. It's such an identification.
It's information. It's just a midpoint. It's information saying we don't know how long you'll be able to conceive,
Mm-hmm.
what things look like at 45 will be different at 35, but the clock striking midnight on your
You
35th
feel like you're
birthday
almost like
is just
35
like,
and then there's a ledge and it just drops. That's what it feels
yes.
like for a lot of people. It's like, okay, so I've hit this marker and now I drop.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I see that so much. And just that having that, I did not have that awareness actually. Thank goodness. But I
Mm-hmm.
knew I was always stuck on when my mom had me when she was 33,
Mm-hmm.
and her mom had her, I think, when she was 36, which was kind of crazy
Yeah,
back then. So I had a little bit of abundant thinking when it came to that. I wasn't
that's
too,
great. Yeah.
it was helpful, versus my mom having had me at 23 or something might have felt a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I also thought, hey, this is supposed to happen when you want it. And I thought, if you work hard enough for something, you're supposed to be able to get it.
Right.
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 I've
That's
got the
that
GPA to
conditioning.
prove it.
Totally. Right.
And that's what is just so kind of life, well, really life changing about the infertility experience is
Mm-hmm.
that you get to this place in your life where you think you're all set,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and everything you knew to be true is shattered.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it turns out we're actually never all set.
Right.
That
That's a
we always
discovery
think
right
we
there.
are,
Yeah.
and we're actually never are. And so that's hopeful to me. I
Yeah.
try to remember now, even when I think I'm all set, you're
Mm-hmm.
not all set. You could still change. You
Yes.
you think you don't like this food? Well, keep trying it because you might eventually like it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, you know that part of the story where you time it just right. Make sure if you start trying to be pregnant today that you're not going to be pregnant for your friend's wedding, or make sure, oh, let's wait a month because we're going to go on this trip at some point. Like you could plan it.
Right.
And so month after month, it's such a slow process.
It is because every month it's a new month and then another month and you have to wait a month at a time.
There's really not a lot you can do. If you like
Yeah.
added up all the minutes in a month that you get to actively do something about conceiving,
Mm-hmm.
and then compare that to all the minutes in the month, it's pretty small.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of time to think
Right. That's a good
within
point.
that.
That's a good way to put it.
Uh, and what do you got? Like really, maybe 2 or 3 times a month. What do we got? Like 20 minutes total. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just kidding, but really, it doesn't. It's not that much, and but then it just infects everything we do.
Yeah.
And you research all you can,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it opens things up. Like, oh, I didn't know what a reproductive endocrinologist is, or I didn't know what acupuncture was, or I didn't know what Chinese medicine is. Like, there is value to researching.
Mm-hmm.
I do, if because the internet feels endless,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Oh
hard to put a
yeah.
cap on that.
Yeah, totally.
And I don't think you can get to, I don't know, I don't think you can get to the end of the internet, but you can
Mm-hmm.
definitely lose yourself in the research and the belief that there's just something out there you haven't found yet,
Yeah.
which is getting more and more tunnel visioned.
Mm-hmm.
I always think of tunnel vision as like putting a magnifying glass on the thing that you're invested in, but actually you burn a hole in it with the sun.
Right. That's a good
It's
point.
the intensity is too much, and the rest of your life can fall apart at that
Yeah.
time. So I was living in Seattle at the time, and that was newish to me as a wilderness instructor. I had worked in New Mexico and North Carolina and California and Washington State, and then it was time to grow up and move to the big city. And I think I was really impacted by the stress of the city.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to stay engaged with nature and walk to work or ride my bike to work, but then being inside in these, we've got great research about how impacted we are by the inside world, and these
Mm-hmm.
like straight, flat lines that
Mm-hmm.
stress us out versus,
Totally. My background's in architecture, and I remember reading about like just smart design and how light in buildings impacts it impacts students' GPA.
totally.
It's
Yes.
really important that you get like natural light, and yeah, it's really important.
Oh,
Yeah,
are you facing a window now?
I am. Yeah.
Hell
I have
yeah.
I have I'm looking at greens, I'm looking at trees, it's interesting because I look
Yes.
at it while I have conversations, and I just connect with the nature as I'm talking subconsciously, but it really impacts how you feel.
Do you have a little nature friend outside? Like, do you ever see a certain bird or a
I
squirrel
do.
or?
Yeah. One of them I think I know is my dad. And then another one, lately I've been seeing beautiful cardinals just a lot. And sometimes
Oh,
I'll see iguanas on the roof right there. Like it's pretty
love
cool.
it. Like,
Yeah.
what a gift and a
It is such
connection.
a gift.
And why do you think we have joy at seeing these things? Like, it's what we've been used to
Yeah.
for
It's so
eons.
innate. It's like our eyes recognize it as
You got
home.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, as home. I love that.
Even like,
Yes.
you talk about the, what is it? Fibonacci. I never say it right. The Fibonacci spiral or the
Oh
equation. I
yeah,
forget.
like the Fibonacci sequence.
Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah.
I never say it right, but I love it. And I used to use it a lot in my paintings, but it basically is what's
Oh,
familiar to the eye. So there's definitely a sequence in nature that is connected to us and how we're made. And
yes.
that is just, it's a very natural for us to recognize it. And it
You're
happens
right.
throughout all of
They're also
nature.
they also call them fractals.
Yes. Hmm.
And you can look up a little bit about, fractals in nature, and it's like
Even
the
with
piece
vibration
of
and
the
sound.
repeating. Oh
So you're
yeah.
going to get those sounds in
Oh,
nature too, like with the birds. I feel like sometimes sitting outside and meditating is so different than sitting inside and meditating, because sometimes I'll hear the birds and I feel like when I tune into them, they're almost tuning me like a tuning fork, my energy. It really is
yes.
something when you give
Yes.
yourself time to connect.
And that's so cool. We do have data also, and that's what I love too, is finally there's some connection
Yes.
to what
Science in
we
this.
yes, what we've known in our spirit our whole existence,
Mhm.
that that our amygdalas are hijacked by all this stress, and that being in nature, it's specifically even nature sound increases the activity in your parasympathetic nervous
Mhm.
system, which is your
Yes.
rest and digest
Yes.
part. And we are in fight or flight way more often than we need to be.
Yes,
Um,
correct. And it's because we're responding to things that are just unnatural and we're bombarded with it everywhere.
oh, that makes me want to sob.
Yeah,
It's
but
like
the good
all the
news
time.
is if you're aware of that, you can tune yourself in no matter where you are. I tell people, get grounding mats if you're in the city, really connect, visualize,
Ooh,
see yourself in nature. We have it no matter where we are, we have it. I think that's the key,
yes.
is like just keep holding on to that.
And you can always find it.
Yeah, it's
And if
always
you
around.
if you have to work in a setting without a window, get outside hourly,
Yes.
or get out even to a window hourly and then go
Yes.
back in. I know we don't have all control, but bringing in plants,
Hmm.
even like looking at a YouTube video of a nature scene is better
Totally.
than nothing. And that
Correct. Yeah,
if
absolutely.
somebody is stuck in their space, I definitely have had offices without windows at short times of my life,
Mhm.
and short times because you can't do it for very long.
Yeah, it's true. You
And
cannot.
watching, you turn on a YouTube video of a rushing creek, it's not
Hmm.
exactly the same, but it's something to help your brain say it's okay.
Yeah.
You're not a prisoner, we
Hmm.
promise. It's and so it's something that I knew was missing from my life as I operated in the much more concrete than I was used to in the city, and just even walking on concrete where I was used to dirt paths. And I believed in my resilience and I didn't know it would affect me that much, but it did end up. So this was during the trying to conceive phase, very frustrating
So you were in
time.
Seattle
I
at
was
the
in
time when you were
Seattle.
trying to conceive.
Yeah, I remember my 33rd birthday. One of my friends joyfully, whispers to me next to the birthday cake, it's about time to start trying for a baby. Not knowing that it had already been a year at that point, and I just like lost it because you don't feel like you can tell anyone, or
Of
if
course, it's like you're inside with that information, and then it kind of opens you up to hearing things that are just not aligned because you cannot help the situation you're in. And
yes,
you're being kind of given information like, oh, why aren't you doing this? Well, I'm asking the
yes,
same question. It's kind of like the same,
right.
going through that.
And then you get the oh well, have you tried?
Oh, yeah.
So and I always try to translate those messages from love. What they're
Yeah.
really trying to say is, I love you and care about you and want this
Yes.
to work for you. But instead, I have really unhelpful things to say.
Well, sometimes it's one of the most triggering things. And I know from speaking to so many of my patients, it's one of the
Yes.
most triggering things, and that's okay. Of course it's going to be, and that's the
Yes.
thing. Like, there's no right or wrong response when you're going through
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And it's really like even giving permission to call it an existential crisis helps us we're forced to realign with what matters
Yeah.
and who we are, what we value, and who we are outside of what we accomplish or become.
I actually
And
love that you say that because it really does feel that way because that's what you want to move on and continue on, and all of a sudden you feel like you're not because you're not able to bring at the
right,
moment, you want to
yeah,
bring life forth and to continue on your life. So that's
yeah,
such a specific good way of describing it.
and if we only have value because we accomplish a certain thing, that's messed up.
Yeah.
And I think we can find resilience in that, and that's what I see a lot of this journey is ultimately resiliency
Yeah.
training.
Yeah.
um,
That is a good way to put it.
for a lot of women, it's the one of the first big life challenges that happen. And I hate to say that there are more, but I think that's a shift in seeing what life is actually the full experience of being alive
Hmm.
and not just getting perfect,
Hmm.
because getting to perfect actually doesn't exist.
Hmm.
And we don't, instead of a mountain you're climbing to get to some top,
Right.
we're kind of some, I can't remember who said this. We're actually kind of spiraling up.
Oh,
That
I
we're
love that. I love that.
Yeah, it's a book and I can't remember
Right.
the name of the author, but I really like that imagery of it's
Mm.
not a straight line to perfection
Yeah.
or just checking these boxes, but
Yeah.
really being in the journey. And that's what I love, that foundation of of paying attention to the wheel of the year too, because it's such a guiding place of guidance to give you permission to access, like, what part in my cycle am I? Cycle menstrually, cycle day and night,
Mm.
cycle in the year, and in really this infertility or trying to conceive being a season of
Mm.
life,
Yeah.
and that we have winters and we have summers
Right.
over and over and over again. Um, so noticing my own nature deficit, and sheer exhaustion at researching follicular phases and
Mm-hmm.
luteal phases, and learning things that we should have learned in health class, but
Yes.
not learning them till my 30s.
Yeah.
And bringing a stack of basal body temperature charts to my gynecologist, and her,
Mm-hmm.
meticulously traced and with a ruler and all the intensity of that, and she just kind of like handed it back to me and laughed,
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
ha ha
Yep.
ha, silly girl. And I think being seen for my age too, and maybe like my overdoing it, or she saw that as overdoing it, just I
Mm-hmm.
felt diminished and judged, and
Yeah.
she sent me
I
away
hear
and
that
was
a
like,
lot.
try for another 6 months, and you feel like your life is ticking away because you had a plan, damn it.
Yeah.
We're trying to get somewhere.
Right.
And then all the like so um I found a park in Seattle. It's 500, I think it's 500 acres, really close to downtown Seattle. And I volunteered to be a docent there. And so sometimes when I talk to clients about volunteering, it's touchy because it's like, well, I don't want to work with kids, and that is totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
But looking for ways to spend your time that are outside of you, because when we get to this place in life when we think, yeah, I think I'm ready to be a mom, we've got some extra space in our lives, and
Mm-hmm.
when that's not happening, it can be joyful to be helping something outside of yourself to reduce the intensity of all that time you have to think about what's not working.
Mm-hmm.
So I got back out into nature at least once a week. I'd wear a little ranger hat
Mm-hmm.
and got to be in a place where I was received no matter what. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mostly would be alone, and mostly helping people find the bathrooms. But
Mm-hmm.
it was a place where I got to be alone. But some people would also say alone is a part of two words, which means all one.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah. I like that. I like that time alone sometimes. It brings you back to your home within yourself sometimes.
Yes. And allowing you to align
Yes.
and breathe and be and find, have new thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
When we're inside,
Right.
our our external input is pretty limited. It's all pretty sterile and generic, and
Mm-hmm.
there are no surprises typically.
Right. Right.
That's why we freak out when we see a spider or mouse or something that's unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're outside, you give your brain permission to light up some other parts of your brain,
Mm-hmm.
and then have new input and give yourself a way to think new thoughts. It's like, I
I
haven't
love
talked
that.
to a woman who's not sick of her brain, kind of
Yeah.
cycling around
All of
to,
us really. It's the human condition.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
and to be overcome. And now that we are generally comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
generally, we can find, if you're housed and fed, that our brains are like, okay, but that's not enough. So is there something else that we can do to get better? That's why I say we never really arrive.
That's right.
And
Spiral up.
yes, it's part of
I love that.
the joy
Yeah.
too. And so I got to volunteer, but one of the unexpected benefits of that volunteer work was meeting another woman who was going through infertility.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy.
That
And I
is,
had didn't have any friends at the time that I could talk to about this. And I'm not sure why, looking back in hindsight, like what I would tell my younger self, or what I think she should have done or not. But that version of myself decided it wasn't, maybe it wasn't important, or I wasn't important, or that people would think that was silly, or I wouldn't get good, wouldn't be held, or would I just be told a bunch of ways to fix it, or
mhm.
stories that well, my sister-in-law tried this and maybe you should do that. Like, it's just not what we're looking for. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we're looking for connection and closeness and someone
Mm-hmm.
to say,
Validation, I think,
yeah,
is a huge one.
yes, yes, so much. And so it was
Yeah.
really fun to, you know, start this relationship with her where we would, text when our periods came and make
Mm-hmm.
plans to go out and or go to a movie together or just be seen and held without talking about it
Mm-hmm.
or talking about it.
Yeah.
And then we eventually welcomed another woman into our club.
Oh, that's
So it
great.
was like an inadvertent, infertility club. I don't know where I read this, but it's the worst club with the
Yes,
best members. Have you
totally.
heard that
Yes.
somewhere?
Yeah. Yep.
So good. And I just shouldn't have been trying to do everything on my own. That I really needed, like you're kind of your own hero walking out in your own journey, and in no hero's journey is anyone doing it alone. Like,
Mm-hmm.
think
It's
about
true.
Dorothy.
Right. We're
She
not an
then,
island. I mean, we need our people, our tribe, really, our people that lift us up. And it's also about finding people that you're aligned with. It's interesting how you kind of knew your inner self, your inner wisdom drew you to going to the park. It was
yeah,
something that pulled you there. And it was what you found a person that you can connect to on that level, which I think is so powerful.
it was so unexpected. But I think I can attribute really following my own values,
Hmm.
which are something we don't often check in about or even know what they are.
Yeah, and I think that
Um,
alone time is where we can hear that inner voice the most.
you've got it. Yeah. It's having, giving yourself permission to do that, being
Yeah.
alone without being lonely.
Yes. Oh my God,
Right.
I
They're
love
two
that.
different things altogether. And if you are lonely, then we could do something about that. But
Yeah.
permission to be alone is good
Yes,
too.
I love that. Yeah.
Um, it's they were just like two containers that had such a powerful impact on my mental health.
Mhm.
Having connection and having nature, it also made an impact on my relationship. Like, how many people we become so obsessed with the process that it's all we can talk about with our
Mhm.
partners,
Yeah.
especially if that's the only person we're talking to about it.
Hmm.
That I even now recommend to couples, like, put a timer on it. If you've got
Hmm.
something you need to discuss, like, really set a timer or a part of the day. We're going to do this for this long, and
Hmm.
then we have to try harder to connect on other stuff.
It's true. Yeah.
It's so much on the bond of the relationship,
Hmm.
and on both parts of the couple too.
Yeah.
They're getting away, and so sometimes people are like, we need couples therapy, which sometimes that's true.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like we need to strengthen the bonds that hold us up outside of our
Yeah.
relationships too, and come
I could
back.
totally hear that. It's interesting also, like, when just think about life when you're doing something and you're only doing that, then you start to run out of solutions, or it's sort of you hit blocks and you're like, oh, I need to step away from this. And I've done this with painting, or the creative process, or
Oh
writing.
yeah.
It's all of that. And what's creativity is just another form of giving birth and conceiving.
Oh
So
yes.
it is. It's allowing something to come through, and when you hit that block, the best thing to do, and you've heard this throughout history, is like
Yeah.
step away and come back with
Yes.
fresh eyes. Like, get a good night's sleep, or just like give yourself a little space from it, and then come
Yeah.
back, and then you'll get the answers. It'll
Oh,
come to you. But that's the truth. Even though it's
it
hard, and I
is.
know it's easier said than done, I totally get it. I totally get it, but there is something to that.
Oh, I love that. Stress is the enemy of creativity.
Yes.
And if creativity is birth, stress can be the enemy of conception,
Oh, yeah.
conceiving ideas. And it's also, we know from the research, it's the enemy of continuing to try.
Yes,
And
it takes
wow.
away hope. It really takes away joy. And I think that a lot of times people think, and this is what I'm saying now, is it's the human condition. It's not even
Mm,
fertility. It could be anything. And it
yes.
happens with anything. When you have a goal in mind, somehow you buy into the idea, I cannot feel good until. And this is
Oh,
like the human condition magnified. It's like, I can't feel good until I get this. It's kind of like coming from that physical, whatever that goal is, but that's not true. It's just not true. It may feel true, but you can still feel joy. And I've seen it with my patients. They get to a
mm,
place where they are still able to feel joy, even after years of loss
oh,
and not getting pregnant. So it is possible, is all I'm saying. Not that
I
you have to
love
do it.
that.
You could do it at your own pace when you're ready, but it is 100% possible.
I love that. Like helping you like get to help people connect to their true rhythm. And
Yes.
like when we can connect to like I think nature is always doing its thing
Yeah.
no matter what. I love like this time of year here in the fall where the trees just let everything go and stand
Yeah.
there naked, right?
Yes.
They're just like,
Oh, I love
whatever,
that.
I'm naked.
That's a good way to look at it.
I
Yeah.
am
Just like,
deepening my
yeah.
roots and I'm strengthening my core and I'm
Hmm.
going to do what I have to do. And so when we can be inspired by that and allow nature to say, hey, I'm doing what I need to do. Like
Yeah.
you have permission to do what you need to do and make
Yeah.
it like um and to make sense of the life you're living
Hmm.
right now, like not of course we have to think sometimes in the future, but it turns
Hmm.
out we're almost always in the future and in the
It's true.
past
Yeah.
when we're
Where our
outside
attention goes.
playing.
Yeah. It goes away.
Yes.
Well, when we're thinking about the future and the past, where's our attention going? Not here.
Mm-mm.
Our energy is
Yeah.
moving away from us right here, right now.
Ah, and then what are we pulling toward us?
Right.
But I guess like pushing ourselves away.
Hmm.
And so when we can attune to be inspired by the rhythms of nature, we can be attuned to our own and give ourselves
Yeah.
permission
I love
to
that.
be as we are, which is whole and peaceful as we are.
Yes.
It's
100%. So so was going back to nature, was that helping you in your journey? Like, how did that impact you?
yeah, let's see, where were we then? And we went to reproductive endocrinology and I did have my first exposure to Chinese medicine and
Hmm.
an infertility acupuncturist, which was
Hmm.
something, like I said, I was like a mall kid, growing up on Kraft mac and cheese, these not super attuned to the Eastern ways of doing things. And I think that's what was so exciting later. At the time it
Yeah.
was stressful, but about opening wide to all the possibilities of healing
Hmm.
and how much that now helps me in other things that I do. And so
Hmm.
often I talk to people about like how much advocating for our own fertility journey, if it's okay to think this way, but it helps to prepare for parenthood
Hmm.
because you're your kid's biggest advocate. And if you're not going to think about what they're eating, or you'll see the specialist and heed their recommendations, but then there's also lots of other things to look into. And I think,
One of the things I say, so it's like, it is like becoming your mother, a mother to yourself.
I love that so much.
Yeah,
Yes.
it evokes the energy of conception. Like, I really think that one of the best
Yes.
things you can do, if nothing else, be a mother to yourself, nurture yourself first.
And wholeness
Yes.
follows.
Hmm.
And then we're resilient to whatever that is because I learned somewhere, don't think your feelings like, oh, it looks cold outside, I'm going to feel cold if I go out there, or
Hmm.
I won't be able, I don't know what I'll be if I'm not a mother.
Hmm.
Like we don't know because we're not that person yet.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
the person who is on the other side of the fertility journey, because it does end. It feels like it won't end, but everyone gets to the other side of it and everyone finds peace. But we can't know who that person is yet because we're still on that, if we're still on that journey. But using it as kind of as an invitation to figure out how to take care of yourself and to not just optimize fertility, but really optimize life. And that I always think if you hear something to optimize your fertility and it doesn't align with what makes sense to you or feel right, then let's use the bigger picture of optimizing your health in your life. And that the two usually go hand in hand, but it helps to kind of weed out like the things that might be scams.
Right.
Which is awful, but it's a way of coming toward your true self and figuring out who that is, who benefits you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Cool.
So what was your biggest aha on like your own journey? What was the thing that really got you like back on alignment for you, for your life?
Learning about the whole spectrum of what wellness can be, that wellness includes rest. Wellness is not being the best. I did try some things like, well, I can't control this. Maybe I'll just try to get my best time in a marathon, which we know is not great for your reproductive parts, right? Yeah. I didn't know that at the time, but it felt great to be.
Oh, a lot of people love that release. Yeah.
Like checking off boxes, right? And like having an external sense of worthiness, that I didn't need to run 6 to 10 miles a day, that I could sleep and I could find value in connecting with other people around things that didn't have to do with psychology or infertility, but just being in community, cooking together, walks in nature together, expanding into a wholer sense of self, playing music, reading fiction, finding joy in your 30s. Yeah. Because that's another part that I think people get so hyper focused on, that I did, of like, here's the next thing to check off. Right. And not realizing that you're already here. This is it. Like, yeah. And you're going to do those 20 minutes of trying to conceive whenever you do. But in the meantime, there's this whole life to live. Yeah. I think accessing nature has always given me permission to slow down. And once you're out, any amount of time is good. Once you're out 20 minutes, we then really start to see the brain responses changing, really, in just supporting everything that's good for us, like decrease in depression and increase in immune function and decrease in anxiety and cortisol and decrease in worry and rumination. It's profound. Sometimes it's profound that I even have to talk about it. Yeah, it's like it's so natural. It's just such a basic need that really we have. Is. So in your journey, you started going to a reproductive endocrinologist, and then what happened? Let's see. I just had, everything was normal. Yeah. We had, and that's, so they said unexplained infertility, no explanation. So then you're like, now what? Frustrating. Yeah. And so really getting a chance to realign with myself and not just be listening to the external messages about who I should be. And that included, trying to imagine, like really imagine life child-free, trying to acknowledge, who do I know in my life who doesn't have children? And I know when we're trying, we're like, well, we are child-free. And I think it's a different mindset completely when when you are on the other side of it, when you're truly child free, you get to think about things that you don't think about when you're stuck in the realm of trying to conceive.
Mm-hmm.
There's freedom there that I don't think we can know until we truly can reconcile what we want.
Yeah, so it's almost like facing your biggest fear when you're going through it, really, because that's like, that is the biggest fear. So you're sitting there and looking at it.
Yeah, it's so much. And eventually I got pregnant and was able to carry a baby to term. And I knew I did not want to abandon the world of infertility like so often. And I totally acknowledge why people want to and do, but when we're in it, we say, man, I want everybody to know how hard this was and what I learned. And I want to write a book and all these things. But really, we're so glad to be out of it. And when there's a baby, you're in a different club. And sometimes you get to meet people through there who are like, oh, I was in the infertility club too, and now we're in the baby club. But you're just busy in a different way, and time takes over. And so I knew as a therapist, I wanted to get more training and find a whole world of reproductive therapists through the American Society of Reproductive Medicine. And just I am really shocked at myself for not finding them when I actually needed it as a patient. But we can all give ourselves some love and warmth about the things we didn't do in the past.
Absolutely.
And that's what has like just inspired me to continue to help women really focus on the relief of the stress that I can't guarantee. Nobody knows how anybody actually gets pregnant. It is just magic, isn't it?
It's a mystery.
It has to be pure magic, because all the things that work for someone else don't work for someone else, and that it doesn't make logical sense. And so if we can't be in the logic, then we've got to be in the magic.
Ooh, I love that.
That means realigning with the rhythms of nature to reclaim your life.
Yeah.
And I could never have imagined that pain would lead to joy. But I think that's a part of our life's work, is to make sense of find the wisdom in those wounds, right?
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could talk to you for hours, and it's such
I
an
love
interesting,
this. I know.
It's so interesting, because I really do feel, I really agree. I mean, the connecting to nature and the wisdom of nature and the wisdom within ourselves, and that flow that really connects both the two together. It's really drawing upon something that we have all around us and we don't always stop and realize that it's there for us. It's there to support us. So I love this topic, and I love your perspective. It's very unique. Sometimes you'll get people that are just into that or just into this, and you're kind of combining psychology and therapy with that, and the therapy and nurturing that nature can give us, and that you've experienced it yourself. So if people are resonating with your story and really want to connect with you, how can they find you?
Oh, yeah. Please come take my quiz about what's keeping you from feeling grounded while trying to conceive at bloomwithallison.com. And there's a quiz there to take. And then you can follow me at Bloom with Allison on Instagram.
Awesome. And I'll have all of the links on the episode notes. So if anybody wants to check it out, you can see the exact links to find Allison. So Allison, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey and really your wisdom that you've learned all along the way. And you're just, you seem like a really kind soul, and like your heart is so in it to help so many people. So thank you so much for the work that you do.
Well, thank you, Michelle, and thank you for the work you do. I'm so glad that we got to connect and make this happen and feel the ripples across the universe together.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
So that concludes today's episode. You can find all of the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to share and leave a review. Reviews mean everything to podcasters, and I really enjoy hearing from my listeners. You can also find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com or email me at info@thewholesomelotus.com. I love hearing from my listeners. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com. I thank you so much for listening in and hope that you have a beautiful day.